Without any further delay, let's get into it. Here's a chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, it happened. The much-awaited tax information around Donald Trump has begun to be released. The full report has not yet come out. But the House Ways and Means Committee voted along party lines. In fact, it was a vote here at the 11th hour. Let's be honest. I mean, you know, right before the Congress changes, the House will look very different in the new year. Tony, roll a little bit and let's share the news.
And on this vote, I have 24 yeas, 16 noes.
The U.S. House Ways and Means Committee voted Tuesday night straight down party lines to make former President Donald Trump's tax returns public. Overnight, the panel released a committee report about its probe and its initial review of the tax papers, revealing, among other things, the IRS did not do the mandatory presidential audits of Trump during his first 2 years in office and never completed any audits while he served.
They quickly concluded that, in fact, the audit did not occur.
That's despite Trump's perennial claims he couldn't share his taxes with the public because he was under audit.
You know, I've been under audit for so many years. Every year I get audited.
According to the
Perennial
committee
is a ding
report,
word,
tax
by the way.
forms show that Trump's reported more losses than gains in 6 years since 2015 and paid little to no federal income taxes between 2015 and 2020. Something he bragged about during the presidential debate against Hillary Clinton.
And they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So
That makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid,
Trump's supporters in Congress call the release an abuse of power and overreach by Democrats who'll be losing control of the U.S. House in less than 2 weeks.
This committee action will set a terrible precedent that unleashes a dangerous new political weapon that reaches far beyond the former president.
Trump's campaign calls the release of the taxes a political attack. Still, the committee has raised questions about whether Trump had the proper documentation for the deductions he sought. And also, CBS News has reached out to the IRS for comment about this report, and we have yet to get a response.
All right,
Gail.
there you go. That's the word on the Trump taxes. And again, I would offer two things. One of which is, you know, it's ironic that he was claiming he was under audit, and that's why he couldn't. I mean, you knew that was BS. You knew it. Yet that was the claim. And, of course, it was just the opposite. One thing I didn't know, and I don't think you knew it either, was that he would be allowed to skate so completely on things that would absolutely trigger audits normally. Huge charitable donations for which there are no receipts. Huge business losses for which there is no actual documentation, huge donations and payments to members of his family that don't square with any kind of reasonable business strategy. And so with shoddy documentation or no documentation, he was allowed to take huge deductions to the point that he paid no taxes in 2020. It's an extraordinary thing. And it's an extraordinary thing, and it speaks to the power, the unfettered power of the executive in this country. And here's the other thing. The IRS has wide latitude when it comes to auditing a president, and Trump took full advantage of that. He leaned into that. Look at what Trump did to those who stepped to him at all. I mean, who was it, Zelensky, who spoke in the impeachment hearing? Who was it, Kim? You know, it was the
Google it.
He was the twin brothers who both worked for the U.S. government, and he was a Ukraine expert, and he saw to it that Trump saw to it that he wouldn't get a government retirement. He went after him. Same is possible at the IRS. And the IRS people know this. IRS executives are aware. They have kids. They have families also. They don't want to run afoul of the sitting president. And so they gave him a pass. Now, maybe they're Trumpies. Maybe they're political allies. I don't know. It may be that as well. But all I'm saying is it ain't a really great way to do business. I mean, would you, if you're a Republican, like Bill Clinton, to have gotten a pass completely from the IRS? I mean, just think back. It's not a cool thing. Vinman, thank you. Chris, thank you. Yeah. And Calvin, thank you. Calvin gives me so many great stories. Calvin Wong, thank you. In any case, I should say, Trump and his businesses lost tens of millions of dollars while he was running for president. After he entered the White House, there were losses as well. Among the items the report says should merit scrutiny are tens of millions of dollars in deductions claimed by Trump and his companies, including for business expenses incurred while president. Business expenses incurred while president and write-offs over 5 years tied to sales from an entity that didn't appear to be selling anything. How much was that write-off? $126.5 million. We're dealing with tremendous amounts of money here. You get out from under your tax burden with deductions like that. So there was another, he took a huge deduction for a conservation easement. That was $21 million. I mean, this is just the beginning of what we're finding out. But the fact that Trump is a tax cheat and a tax fraud, maybe not breaking news in one sense, although now we're actually seeing how much of it he is. Here's the thing that will surprise you about Donald Trump. It doesn't reflect well on the IRS, Karen Cooper says. Of course, you're right. That was my point about the IRS. Yeah. You realize how much latitude they have. And we could even touch on this with Steve Moskowitz, because Moskowitz knows. That's why you and I need Steve Moskowitz, and people who fly at higher altitudes, they just flip the bird to the IRS. They make up stuff, and they are given wide berth. Certainly a sitting president in this case, it shows, has been given insanely wide berth. I wanted to share one thing that will surprise you, though. GOP has been and continues to defund the IRS. That's true, so they can get away with all the shady deals they want to keep making. Nick makes an interesting point, but there is more nuance to it than that. The IRS has been defunded in some measure by the GOP, but it's the enforcement on the upper echelon that's been defunded. So it's even more to Nick's point. They don't want to get fingered by the IRS. They don't want to have the IRS ultimately come down on them. So they defund the enforcement division associated with those making millions of dollars, the higher echelon. But they've actually, as you know, repopulated much of the IRS enforcement agency below those numbers, so that people like us and middle-class Americans have to pay the huge tax bills that we do. And it's got to be galling when you look at someone like Trump, who's gotten away with what he's gotten away with. Now I want to tell you about his NFT. His NFT, the announcement was a joke, right? I mean, echelon is a ding word, says Tom. I guess that's true. Yeah, an echelon is a ding word. The word I get is that, and let me find it here, the NFT. The NFT that Trump sold, you'll remember they were selling for how much? Does anybody remember? It was just a few days ago. $99.99, baby.
Google it.
Yeah, it's right there. It's pretty good deal. $99.99 or $99. Less than $100, you get an NFT from Donald Trump. You get the superhero NFT. You get the other superhero NFT. All the super poses of Trump, on a rocket ship. Trump as an astronaut. Trump as a superhero. Okay, you get it. You buy it for $99. The first thing I'll tell you is that we thought it was a joke, but they sold out right away. They sold out of those NFTs. Kim reported that on her news. Here's the other part of it. If you bought one of those NFTs for $99, you can now resell it for $3,000. The joke is on us.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, man is right. That's your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Yeah. So there you have it. And that's the Trump stuff. He bought he bought them himself. Is that right, Chris? Did he? Well, if he did, then he can. Apparently, they're trading for $3,000. Yeah.
Just like every industry, the reselling of goods has been ruining the prices and the actual goods. You know, like Nike came out with those shoes that were easier to put on for especially with people with disabilities, and of course sneaker culture. They all bought up the shoe and resold it at crazy prices, but for those who actually needed the shoe didn't actually get it. So just like you see it happen everywhere.
I mean, it's just great to hear from Albert because Albert's in that world. The commissioner loves to trade those shoes. He's in the world of trading sneakers, you know, finding sneakers, trading them, getting rarer sneakers, getting better sneakers. And you're saying that there's a world of manipulating prices essentially when it comes to trading.
Yeah, and buying out limited items. Obviously, this is like he had 44,000 of these, but if you think about the bigger scope, it's like it is still limited edition, and then it just for the people who actually wanted it, it's just a lot more difficult.
Yeah, Mike in Willow Glen says the market for his NFT might be being manipulated. Really? You think something that has to do with Trump is not legit? Maybe. I don't know. He's such a straight shooter, you know. But Musk blatant attempt at laundering. Damn the sheeple who are falling for it. Yeah, I don't really feel it was like the wall money raise. I didn't really feel bad for the people who threw money at that wall thing. I knew it was a fraud. And the more they said that not $1 goes to us, it all goes into building the wall, the more I knew they were keeping all the money. And that's what happened. In fact, that's what Steve Bannon was pardoned for taking all the money, for perpetuating that fraud. But I thought, well, they're a bunch of saps. It's not, look, any of us could be saps, all right? And many of us have been saps in one way or another. But I mean, if you're still buying the BS that Bannon and Trump were serving up about money and needing money, well then, you know, shame on you. So I felt the NFTs sort of fell into the same category. But I guess what I am telling you is, manipulate or not, those NFTs are worth more. So those saps that bought them, they can make some real scratch. I want to